Showtime! The Capital G show starts right now.
What's up YouTube, Capital G here. So we're talking about an oldie but goodie in this video, Starlight Road, and it actually feels weird me saying oldie because I've been playing this game for so long. It feels like the 5Ds era just started, you know, like a couple of minutes ago, but then it's like, man, that was over half a decade when this card was released. For those of you who don't know what Starlight Road does, it is a normal trap that says when a card or effect is activated that would destroy 2 or more cards you control, negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. Then special summon 1 Stardust from your extra deck. So basically, even though it's not a counter trap, which it should have been, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. It's really just a countermeasure specifically designated for mass removal. When the card first came out, it was really good, not only because it stopped things like Heavy Storm and Torrential Tribute, just complete blowout cards, but then you got a free Stardust Dragon as well. And the Stardust Dragon could negate other cards in addition to the card that you had already negated. So like if you negated your opponent's Heavy Storm and they happen to have like a Mirror Force set, well, you could just use Stardust to negate that. So not only was it a +1, but then it gave you even more protection. And then if your opponent didn't even use any mass removal, then you could just beat the crap out of them with the Stardust. Now, the Stardust wouldn't actually come back if you use this effect because it's not considered to be properly synchro summoned. It's just you summoning the card on the field. But in the past, I actually main decked multiple copies of Starlight Road in some of my regional top 8 decks, my Glad Beast and my TG Stun. And honestly, every single time that I resolved this card, I won easily. Like it was just complete blowout and my opponent just like momentum completely swung in my direction. Now the card became obviously less viable the second that Heavy Storm got banned because it didn't really serve as great protection for you going step 5 in your back row and telling your opponent, come at me, bro, because Heavy Storm was really gone. And after Duelist Alliance came out, there was really no reason to ever consider this card because we, as the players, for the most part, in the competitive meta, just stop playing monster destruction, especially mass monster destruction, because you wouldn't want to Dark Hole a Dante or Dark Hole a Deltaros, or even try to Dark Hole a Winda. Like, just cards like Dark Hole and RAIGEKI weren't really that good when Duelist Alliance came out. But now, as the game has kind of moved more towards Cleaforts and Necros, I think that it's pretty obvious if you've been looking at the game for the past couple of weeks, especially post Secret Forces, that destruction is definitely back in spades. And if you look at just the commonly played cards right now in the meta that would trigger Starlight Road, just the cards that a lot of people play in multiple decks. I mean, obviously you have Dark Hole, RAIGEKI, Mirror Force, Torrential Tribute, and Bottomless in certain situations. I mean, that's 5 cards right there. You can play multiple copies of Mirror Force and Dark Hole, so it could be even more than 5 cards. And if you dig a little bit deeper and you start looking at, you know, the extra deck, well, I mean, any deck in the game that can rank 4 is probably going to run EXCITON, and that's a whole lot of decks. And then if you dig even deeper than that, you start looking at the specific matchups against decks. It's like, okay, well, if you're playing against Cleafort, they use Storm. That's a card that can trigger Starlight Road. If you're playing Cleafort and you're going against somebody in game 2 or 3, well, it's pretty common that they'll side in Fairy Winds and Spell Shattering Arrow against you. Both of those will trigger Starlight Road as well in certain situations. If you're playing against Burning Abyss, there's Fire Lake of the Burning Abyss. If you're playing against maybe Shadows, there's Black Rose Dragon, because a lot of times it's pretty common if you invest a lot of cards to the field for your opponent to go Mathematician, okay, get Phalus, try and Black Rose your entire field. And then, you know, even like Volcanics, they've got Scatter Shot. I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if you look outside of just the commonly played mass removal cards and you look at a whole bunch of decks that you might have to compete against, it almost seems like each one of those decks has a key combo or kind of like a big play that they use that can obviously trigger Starlight Road. And what's really good about Road is the summoning of the Stardust Dragon is completely optional. That means you technically don't even need to run Starlight in your extra deck to resolve this card. So that means that you can actually activate Starlight Road Road while under Vanity's Emptiness. You can use it under Vanity's Fiend. If you have like the Klee cards in your Pendulum zones where you can only summon Klee monsters or special summon Klee monsters, you can totally still use Starlight Road while under that. I think the card is worth looking into right now, especially if you run a deck like Klee Fort or Yosenju where you always have to commit heavy back row, and Road just gives you protection from those blowout cards like EXCITON Knight and Fairy Wind, where your opponent can take out multiple floodgates at once, and it's like, whoa, with a Starlight Road I can totally save my floodgates, kill your card, and maybe if I'm playing Yosenju I can get like a free Stardust Dragon as well, and at that point I'm almost certainly gonna win. I think that you can also use the card offensively, which people sometimes forget, because a lot of times if you're playing Yosenju, you know how much that deck likes the normal summon 3 monsters at a time. Okay, now you have protection from Torrential and Mirror Force. And it's actually ironic me saying that, because when I ran GB, I used to use this card almost always defensively. I used to set 5 back row, summon Laquari, and tell my opponent, like, come at me, bro. And they would be like, okay, well, I'm going to go into Hunland and try and nuke your back row. I'm going to activate Heavy Storm. And I'd be like, Starlight Road, I win. And then when I played TG Stun at another regional, all I used to do is I used to bait people into torrentialing me or the mirror forcing me. I used to overextend on purpose so that people would torrential me. That was the format when TT was at 2, and people would TT me and I would just Starlight Road them. And if I didn't Starlight Road them, I didn't care, because TTs, or excuse me, Tech Genish replaced themselves during the end phase. So I think the card definitely warrants consideration. It's not susceptible to like MSTs as some of the other cards are. I mean, maybe you see a lot of times Klee Fort players, they'll try and Phoenix Chain and EXCITON Knight, or Skill Drain and EXCITON Knight when it uses its effect only to die to, a Mystical Space Typhoon. People don't really blind MST that much. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching, as always.